in the festival.
This is great. I took a peek at the trailer, and thank you for sending me the link to that. But man, this was some really eye-opening stuff that was shown in this trailer. What can people expect with Moon Hoax Now?
Well, the moon hoax idea that we didn't go to the moon and that NASA faked it and as a Cold War era, attack, so to speak, has been gaining traction since the 80s. But the information has been recycled, and it almost seems that everything that's talked about, there's an easy excuse for. I always thought, I grew up watching them landings as a child, and as I always was fascinated by the moon landings, and I just have a natural inclination to study the video footage and everything to do with it. And I just, as a hobby, you go look at your favorite things on the web. I always took updates and see what was going on. And finally, I saw at a forum one day they were talking about this graphic that NASA had published about no sound being made. It was this is the thing in the trailer that I focused on, because sound on the moon is impossible because there's no air to carry the sound. It's a vacuum. And NASA had acknowledged that in a spot on their website that was Lunar Science for Children. And they had a photograph of astronaut Alan Bean on Apollo 11, and he was hammering a core tube into the ground to take a sample of the soil. And it said in the graphic, when the astronaut hammered this into the ground, because there's no atmosphere on the moon, it said no sound was made, quote, end quote. No sound was made. Well, as it turns out, the official broadcasts that were broadcast live capture that exact moment, and there's a hard, loud, metallic hammering. And it has now been acknowledged at the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal that sound was recorded, and the only way it could have been recorded was through the microphones inside the suit. So now they're trying to rewrite history. When they originally said no sound was made, now they're trying to say that the sounds that you hear on the Apollo missions, and you never hear any sounds when you listen to the astronauts, and you hear the astronauts in the International Space Station discuss sound, and I have two of them in the film, Piers Sellers and Mike Massimino. They're not in the film. Yeah, they didn't endorse my film. I just found clips of them discussing hammering and using tools out in the vacuum of space, and they make a direct point. When you're hammering out there, it's such a strange feeling to be hammering with a metal hammer and hear absolutely nothing. And that's the way it's supposed to happen scientifically. But now they're trying to counteract that, and they're trying to say the sounds somehow got into the atmosphere of the suit and triggered the microphone. And as I discussed in the film, though, the suit itself has like 15 layers. The sound would have to travel through these layers, and some of those layers are themselves vacuum sealed. And you do not hear this same kind of sound, any kind of sound from the astronauts in the modern spacewalks. So it was pointed out in a forum that there was a contradiction there, and when I went looking for the graphic that said no sound was made, I had found that NASA had disappeared it from the web, but I was lucky enough to use an incredible resource for researchers called the Wayback Machine at archive.org, and I found the image, and I found the page, and I featured it in the film, and it's quite stunning.
It's remarkable, and you're right how in recent years this is the conversation of this is really kind of ramping up, and I think this is the perfect time to make this film available for people to see it. And there's also one other sort of weird thing I think that happens in the trailer, Jet. Maybe you can explain to me what I was watching there. It looks like there's a scene where there's like somebody in a spacesuit that almost, I don't know, are they throwing something up in the air, or is something like falling down? What's that weird thing that also happens in the trailer?
Well, the thing is that with the sound issue, they've tried to make this excuse that when they're working with objects and hammering them, the sound can travel through a solid and get somehow into the microphone. But in that instance that you're talking about, I found a clip from Apollo 15, and that's astronaut James Irwin. And what he's doing is he's unraveling a canister from the MESA, which is a modular equipment stowage assembly. And this is something that was attached to the ship, which they pulled down. It had the camera on it that filmed the astronauts coming out of the ship, and it had a number of supplies. And that thing that he's throwing is a metal cord with two metallic ends, tips. They look like bullets. And he unravels that, and he just discards it. But it hits the ship, and it goes clank. And so this is a big problem for the people trying to explain the hammering, because he's not touching the object when it hits the ship. And the only microphones on the whole mission at that moment that we're on, which I proved through the technical manuals and the stowage and the unstowing of things, are the microphones inside their helmets. So he's in a full spacesuit. He throws an object. It goes about, you could see, about 15 feet from him and hits the ship and makes a sound. That's impossible. So that's a double confirmation. Not only do you have the hammering, but this is an external sound, and there are other external sounds. In fact, the more you look at the footage, and I've been studying it now for 2 years, things start to emerge. And my film has about 4 novel things in it, and that I'm glad you picked up on that, because I think that is if you're really paying attention, that is the most stunning admission that they just cannot be on the moon at that moment. And like I say in the film, I can't say with this evidence that we didn't go to the moon, and nobody can say that, because maybe they went to the moon and they had no way of filming it or recording it. We don't know, but these clips were broadcast live to the world, and they just look fake. They just do not follow scientific principles, and I'm glad you put that up, because that is one of the most stunning aspects of the film.
This sounds like so much fun to just watch, Jet, to just kind of watch this and just kind of watch everything that was going on with Moon Hoax Now. It's going to be the main film shown on Sunday, which is the conclusion of the United States Super 8mm Film and Digital Video Festival at Rutgers, and works with the New Jersey Film Festival. And Jet, boy, there's going to be a lot of conversation happening after Sunday after people see this movie. I can promise you that.
Well, I just want to give a tip to people listening. Like, if you're going to a movie, like maybe not this week, any weekend, we all go through the movie listings. It's often frustrating. You want to go see a movie. There's nothing great playing, nothing to get excited about. Check New Jersey Film Festival online. It doesn't run all year, but they have 3 separate seasons, and the fall, the spring, and the summer. And most of the time, if you'll check there, you'll see a rundown of the films that are playing, usually 2 nights a week. Al Nygren, the director of the festival, has built this thing up. This is the 29th year for the U.S. Super 8. This is his baby. If you ever just need to go see a great film, just go to that website, see what's playing. You're going to find something you can't find playing anywhere else. The New Jersey Film Co-op, Rutgers, and the New Jersey Film Festival, as led by Al Nygren, are an absolute inspiration to me as a filmmaker, and I don't even think I'd be making films if it wasn't for them.
Wow. And again, it's this coming weekend, the 2017 U.S. Super 8mm Film and Digital Video Festival, and you can catch Moon Hoax Now. Don't miss this. With Jet Wintzer from Old Bridge will be shown on Sunday there. And, wow, this is going to be a real kind of eye-opening film. And I congratulate you, Jet, on putting this together, because this is pretty cool. People have seen this, have got to be like, you're on to something huge with this, right?
Well, the thing is, yes, it's caused a stir, because there's one other segment I want to talk about real quick, and it involves pictures that were stained. There's a series of pictures over 2 reels that have what is obviously a spill pattern all over these pictures. And we have proved in this film, and even, there's a huge community of people who are NASA defenders online, and they are nasty and they are vicious. But even they have admitted to being stumped by this one, because the stains we prove in the film, NASA always contended that the stains came from dust that was put onto the camera inside the lunar cabin in between the extravehicular activities. When the astronauts would go out on the moon, they would stay in the cabin overnight, repressurize it, and clean off the equipment. And they had said for decades that they acknowledged these stains were there, and they said that these were the cause of dust patterns on the plate of the camera that got there when they cleaned it. However, we proved in the film, I proved that is an impossible explanation. We prove exactly when the stains happen, and it happens on the lunar surface at Station 9 during extravehicular activity 2 on the 2nd day. And we prove that it happens there, and the NASA defenders have acknowledged that we are right about this claim. And we contend that this stain is actually orange juice, Bert. Orange juice. This mission, particularly Apollo 16, you can hear the astronauts and see it in all the reports. They had a problem with the orange juice packs in their helmets. Every time they went to move their head, they would get squirted by this orange juice. I mean, this is happening on the surface of the moon. You can hear them talking about getting an earful of orange juice during the second extravehicular. They stated, "Oh, I just got an earful of orange juice," and this went in the mission reports. And this, not only that, in the neck rings of the helmets, which are supposed to be airtight, and if they're airtight, that means they have to be watertight, because water molecules are bigger than air molecules. The astronauts state that they could not even get their helmets off because the the orange juice seeped into the neck ring and in between the seals. That's a direct quote. The orange juice got in between the seals and turned into like a cement, and they were worried they wouldn't be able to get the helmets off.
Wow.
So if the yeah.
It was probably Tang, right? Instead of orange juice, it was probably Tang, right?
And it was fortified
Right.
by potassium, and you could see it's some sort of brown-orange liquid on the pictures. And, our theory is that that was orange juice, one that got through the neck ring and splashed onto the camera when they changed magazines out on the moon. And this has stumped the defenders, and we have a real issue here, and NASA needs to explain how those stains got there because the official explanation is bunk.
Good stuff. Jet Wintzer, Moon Hoax Now. Congratulations on the film, and have some fun on Sunday. I know a ton of people are going to come out and see this, so thank you for your time this morning, all right?
All right, thanks a lot, Bert, and thanks for having us and supporting the film festival.